biggest games, the best performances, expert analysis. You are Locked On Now.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now, local experts on the biggest stories throughout the NFL. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thanks for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. On today's show, Week 10 will feature some familiar faces and new locations and just some good matchups overall. We've got a lot to sort out for you on Locked On NFL. Our hosts have a bunch to say, and we'll start off with an impressive performance from the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football.
The best performance.
Hold up.
Lamar Jackson and the Ravens were held to just 10 points in a surprising loss to the Dolphins. Locked On Ravens breaks down how everything went wrong for their team in Miami.
The Baltimore Ravens fall to the Miami Dolphins by the final score of 22-10 in Week 10. This is Kevin Ostraker of the Locked On Ravens podcast. It was an overall disappointing and embarrassing loss for the Ravens as they just could not get a ton going on offense, finishing the contest just 2 of 14 on third down. The Ravens defense did their job for the most part. They did have a few blown coverages, a few missed tackles, and a few miscommunications, but they didn't allow a touchdown until right over the 2-minute point in the fourth quarter. And usually when a defense does that, it's good enough to win a football game. Baltimore has some adjusting to do. They have to look in the mirror a little bit, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Hats off to Miami and how they played, but this is a game that the Ravens, really kind of needed. That stretch, Week 9, Week 10, Week 11, that was a stretch that they really should have gone 3-0 in. Now they are 1-1 with the Chicago Bears on the docket in Week 11. The Ravens have 10 days to make their adjustments, but they'll have to come out as a better football team against the Bears in order to have a shot to win that game in 10 days. For more on the Ravens and the Locked On Ravens podcast, be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On Ravens podcast, part of the Locked.
The Browns are 1-0 since releasing Odell Beckham Jr., but this game in Foxborough will be a tougher test for Baker Mayfield and company. Locked On Browns has the details.
This is Locked On Browns host Jeff Lloyd with your Browns keys to victory for Week 10 against the New England Patriots. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah has returned to practice for the Browns. This is big. New England has a strong running attack, which they use to aid rookie quarterback Mac Jones. So getting their fastest and best linebacker could be key for the Browns this week. On the offensive side of the ball, we're going to look to see continued improvement as the Browns have moved on from Odell Beckham Jr. and focused on every other one of their skill positions. Big weeks for the tight ends. The Browns love their 12 and 13 personnel and allow them to use them in situations where it doesn't necessarily dictate whether it's going to be a run or a pass, and they can use their tight ends accordingly as blockers or receivers. Big one in New England Sunday. Browns, Patriots, 1 p.m. Browns looking to win their second in a row, get them to 6-4 with 7 to go. Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns host. Thank you for making us your first listen every day.
The Titans have been up and down this season, but right now they are up and red hot after knocking off the Rams last week. Locked On Titans is hoping that trend continues against the Saints this weekend.
Tyler Rowland here, host of the Locked On Titans podcast, with your Tennessee Titans key to victory for a Week 10 matchup at home against the New Orleans Saints. For the Titans, it's all about the field position battle. Right now, the New Orleans Saints have the second best average starting field position in the NFL at the 32.4-yard line, and per Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints from the Crossover Thursday episode, the Saints are 9-1 in their last 10 games where their average starting field position is the 30-yard line or better. So that means that the Titans have to win in the kicking game. Even though it can be boring, it will be incredibly important that the Titans have great punts from Brett Kern, who's really been hot lately, kicking the ball inside the 20-yard line, and making sure that Randy Bullock, the kicker, kicks the ball into the end zone and makes the Saints start at the 25-yard line to avoid that extra 5 yards that they seem to be getting every single drive. So the way that you do not help out a struggling offense for the Saints is to make sure that they don't get a benefit in the field position battle. That is your key to victory for Week 10 for the Tennessee Titans. For more, check out the Locked On Titans podcast on whatever platform you do stream. And thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day.
After a tough division loss to the Saints, the defending champs need to get back on the winning track to stay atop the division. Locked On BUCS previews this weekend's game in Washington.
Focus on defense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 10 as they travel to the nation's capital to face the Washington football team. I'm David Harrison of the Locked On Bucs podcast with your key to victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's going to be defending against quarterback Taylor Heinicke. Taylor Heinicke has not proven himself to be a super accurate or super on-time quarterback for the Washington football team in his time starting in place for the injured Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he has proven from time to time to still be a dangerous weapon for Scott Turner's offense when he's on the move. Going back to the wild card game that the Buccaneers faced against the Washington football team, Taylor Heinicke had a very solid second half that helped Washington almost try to pull off the upset over the eventual Super Bowl champions. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, expect a lot more of the same. Expect Taylor Heinicke to come out looking to do damage with his legs. It's going to be indicative that the defensive line, the pass rush, the linebackers, Devin White and Levante David, keep him contained. Don't allow him to do damage with his legs. Force him to be a passer, where we've seen that can be his weakness in the 2021 NFL season. For more on this game and everything Tampa Bay Buccaneers, check out myself and my co-host James Yarko on the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Coming up next, we'll go around the league to find out more of the keys to victory in Week 10 with the help of our Locked On NFL hosts. You're listening to Locked On Now. Today's edition of Locked On Now brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar out there. Low calorie, low carb, low fat, low sugar, but high in protein. And they're made of 100% real chocolate, so they come in tons of different flavors. There's something for everybody. And they're even coming out with new limited edition flavors every 3 to 4 days. So what you need to do is head over to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. Welcome back to Locked On Now. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. Now let's take a look around the league at everything you need to know going into Week 10.
Let's go around the league.
It was a tough overtime loss in Baltimore for the Vikings last week, and now they have another tough road matchup this Sunday when they head west to take on the Chargers. Locked On Vikings breaks down what this team has to do to get it done in LA.
Oh God, there's a game. Oh God, there's a game this week. The Chargers, they got a bad run defense. They should run the ball. Oh my God, they've been so bad at running the ball. They have to try to run the ball and get pressure on Justin Herbert. They've been pretty good at getting pressure on Justin Herbert. That might be the way that they can win the game, but the Chargers have like the last run defense in the league, and if the Vikings can't run the ball against them, they can't run the ball against everybody. But honestly, I just hope to make it to Sunday and the franchise still has a roof over its head. This has been one hell of a season. You can listen to more on it about all this on the Locked On Vikings podcast, assuming I survive until then.
The Cowboys got a wake-up call last week as they dropped a shocker to the Broncos. They don't have any time to lick their wounds, though, as a hot and cold Atlanta team comes hungry into town looking for a win. Locked On Cowboys details what Dallas needs to do to bounce back.
The Cowboys need a bounce-back victory this week against the Atlanta Falcons after the debacle that they put on the field in Dallas against the Denver Broncos last week. I feel confident the Cowboys offense will find a way to get back in sync, and I think the boost with Michael Gallup coming back onto the field is going to be incredible. My concerns lie now on the other side of the ball. Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and with a need to come back and show that they are still a contender in the NFC, especially after some of the latest moves that have been put up by some of the other contenders, including the Rams signing OBJ. The Cowboys need to come out and show that they are still alive in this race. I have confidence that the offense is going to find a way to get back in sync, that Dak's going to get back in sync with his receivers. Getting Gallup back will improve that as well. I feel like a good week of practice, and it sounds like the Cowboys did have that, will get them back in rhythm. But the defense now is really concerning. After last week, they didn't have turnovers, which is fine, but they also couldn't find a way to get off the field. They were giving up first downs on second and forever, finding ways to just let Denver continue to convert. And now they've lost Randy Gregory this week after a week to another calf strain after another hard week of practice trying to push to get back in sync. You know, the Cowboys still have Micah Parsons. They're going to kick him onto the outside, but things are looking kind of strained out there. And Matt Ryan is no joke of a quarterback. So the Cowboys need to find a way to make it work on defense this week. And the Cowboys offense definitely needs to get back in sync to score a bunch of points, because despite not having Calvin Ridley or the outside threats, Matt Ryan is a quarterback who still should be feared with enough targets. And with Cordell Patterson and with Kyle Pitts playing the way they are, the Cowboys could be in for a long day if they're not ready.
The Pittsburgh Steelers offense found its footing over the course of the last couple of weeks, and they can now tie up the AFC North with a win after the Ravens' loss last night. The opportunity couldn't be better against the winless Lions, and our Locked On hosts from both sides have the biggest keys for each team.
I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast, and here is your biggest keys to the Steelers versus the Lions at Heinz Field Sunday at 1 p.m. The Lions come into this game with the 29th worst rushing defense in the NFL. Najee Harris did have a limited practice on Thursday with the Steelers, but he should be good to go. The Steelers need to call upon him to base its offense, make things easier for Ben Roethlisberger, make this a game that the offense grinds out, the offensive line gets back on track, and see their number one drafted running back fly forward. And then build off of that by hitting Pat Freiermuth behind him. But it all starts with the run. If the Steelers can actualize the run game, get behind the Lions and force their linebackers to have to sell out more over the middle, it'll open up easier passing lanes, and it'll make everything flow a lot smoother in Heinz Field and help them avoid the trap game against the winless Detroit Lions. For more, go to the Locked On Steelers podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Odyssey for my full Friday breakdown with Jenna Hunter of Channel 11 WPXI, where we preview the game, pick all Week 10 games, and get into some defensive MVP talk.
The Arizona Cardinals successfully bounced back from their first loss of the season by beating the Niners last week, and now it's back to business against the Carolina Panthers and newly reunited Cam Newton. The Cards have the Rams right on their heels in the NFC West, and Locked On Cardinals tells us how Arizona needs to win this to stay a game ahead.
With a ton of their stars out, the Arizona Cardinals had no problem taking out the San Francisco 49ers, improving to 8-1, and the road actually not getting that harder in Week 10. Carolina Panthers coming to Glendale, taking on the Cardinals, and Alex, there's so many paths to victory, it seems, against the lowly Panthers, especially with Sam Darnold being out of this contest. What do you see as the major key to victory for the Cards and crew?
Respecting the team across from them as an NFL team, regardless of who's playing, and take care of business. Try to, not sustain any more injuries and go into Week 11 on the road to Seattle. Like, it sounds so cliche and so general, but we don't know what Kyler's going to do. Nobody practiced on Wednesday, so we don't know what this team is going to look like. So any given Sunday, remember what Jacksonville did to Buffalo is a great bulletin board piece of material for the Cardinals to remember. Any team, any Sunday could beat any team regardless of talent level. They just have to take that with them on Sunday against Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, the cliche exists for a reason any given
Right.
Sunday, but here's a Carolina team that scored under 10 points a game in the last 3 contests. If the Arizona Cardinals offense shows up, puts up some points, that's your key to victory. I think it's pretty simple. You score enough points, you get maybe to 21, and this thing's out of reach for the struggling offense. The Carolina Panthers. Cardinals could be looking at 9-1. It's Bo, it's Alex. We got a couple more shows the rest of this week. Check us out, Locked On Cardinals.
The Green Bay Packers come into this week still not 100% sure who their quarterback is going to be on Sunday. Aaron Rodgers is on track to be back without any setbacks in that COVID protocol, but Locked On Packers says Green Bay will need to protect whoever is dropping back if they want to beat Seattle.
Protect the quarterback, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love. That is the key to victory for Green Bay against the Seahawks with Russell Wilson. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and Green Bay comes into this game with some questions about who is going to play quarterback. At this point, it seems about 95% that it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, not Jordan Love, but he does still have to check certain medical protocols for Green Bay to clear him to play on Sunday. Regardless, what we saw last week when the Chiefs blitzed the Packers with Jordan Love 50% of the time cannot be repeated on Sunday. Now, if Aaron Rodgers is under center, we will not see Seattle blitz at that kind of rate. The problem for the Seahawks is they are a bottom 5 team in adjusted sack rate. Green Bay is a top 10 team in pass block win rate, even with some of the issues that they've had up front, and they're getting David Bakhtiari potentially back for this game. He was activated on Wednesday and has the chance to play on Sunday. Regardless of who the quarterback is, but especially with Aaron Rodgers out there, if Green Bay can protect, they will be able to score on a defense that is nothing like the Legion of Boom, with a secondary that has plenty of holes, with a safety that is a better blitzer than cover player, and a pass rush that just does not have the teeth of a team that used to have Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, and a slew of guys who could come at you from every angle. This is not your slightly older brother Seahawks team, and if the Packers offense can just do the things that it normally wants to do because it's not overwhelmed by pressure, they're going to win.
That's a wrap for us. I'm Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every day. For more on the NFL and your team, make sure you listen to Locked On NFL and your team's Locked On podcast. This has been Locked On Now.